Good day to everyone who is here with us. As we gather here today, we invite you to fasten your seatbelts metamorphically because we are about to embark on a journey of intellectual exploration. In this discussion, we will delve into the profound ideas presented in the first two meditations of René Descartes' masterpiece, Meditation on the First Philosophy. It is a journey into the realm of doubt, skepticism, and the foundations of knowledge. But before that, have you ever wondered who is René Descartes? Let's find out. A remarkable thinker. That is René Descartes, born on March 31, 1596 in La Haye-Touraine, France, and passing away on February 11, 1650 in Stockholm, Sweden. Descartes was a polymath whose impact resonates across multiple fields of study. He is a man who transcended the boundaries of mathematics, science, and philosophy. His legacy endures not only in academic circles, but also in the popular imagination as Cogito ergo sum, continues to inspire and challenges us to contemplate the nature of our own existence.
Meditation on First Philosophy. First, of the things which may be brought within the sphere of the doubtful. Second, of the nature of the human mind, and that it is more easily known than the body. Third, of God, that He exists. Fourth, of the true and the false. Fifth, of the essence of material things, and again of God, that He exists. And last one, of the existence of material things and the real distinction between the soul and body of man. Meditation 1. Of the things which may be brought within the sphere of the doubtful. Uncertain beliefs. It is now some years since I detected how many were the false beliefs that I had from my earliest youth admitted as true. Rebuilding his knowledge, I was convinced that I must once for all seriously undertake to rid myself of all the opinions which I had formerly accepted, and commence to build anew from the foundation. The realization that he had a lot of false beliefs led him to think that he must demolish his entire belief system to build a new foundation of knowledge. Method of doubt. Doubt in all things, especially about material things. A strategy to avoid any false beliefs. Basic principle is said to be the foundation of all beliefs. Deception of senses. All that up to the present time I have accepted as most true and certain I have learned either from the senses or through the senses. But it is sometimes proved to me that these senses are deceptive, and it is wiser not to trust entirely to anything by which we have once been deceived. Senses can deceive. Dreaming argument. But in thinking over this, I remind myself that on many occasions I have in sleep been deceived by similar illusions. And in dwelling carefully on this reflection, I see so manifestly that there are no certain indications by which we may clearly distinguish wakefulness from sleep that I am lost in astonishment. And my astonishment is such that it is almost capable of persuading me that I now dream. Dreams could be so vivid that it would be hard to distinguish if we are real or we are living in a dream. Idea of God, a powerful being that would not cause any deception. The concept of God made him think that reality is much more different than it is because maybe God made the world different from what he thinks it is. Malicious demon. He thinks that there is something behind the deceptions he experienced, and it might be the malicious demon or evil God. Just like God, this evil God is also a powerful being to the point that if this being wishes to deceive him, then he will be deceived. He could do nothing but withhold his assent from anything that might be false. One thing he has is the freedom to make a choice, to choose what to believe in or what not to.
Let us now take an inside view of meditation 2, of the nature of the human mind, and that is more easily known than the body. Deceived by someone. René Descartes believed that someone that we do not know deceived him to exist, that the deceiver only puts to our imagination that we exist. Can't doubt his existence. I think, therefore I exist. René Descartes explained that he exists even if someone is deceiving him that he exists. What am I? But I do not yet know clearly enough what I am. I am who I'm certain that I am. However, René Descartes still doubted what was behind in existence. He is man, but what it is to be a man? Is it a rational animal? But what it is a rational animal? Soul and body. I was nourished that I walked, that I felt, and that I thought, and I referred all these actions to the soul. A body that can use senses, touch, smell, and hear. A soul that can feel sensation and imagination. Thinking, an attribute that belongs to him. I am, I exist, that is certain. But how often? Thinking is an essential attribute to him. If he sees, thinking, then it is the same time that he ceases to exist. Mind. Nothing of all that I can understand by means of my imagination belongs to this knowledge which I have for myself, and that it is necessary to recall the mind from this mode of thought with the utmost diligence in order that it may be able to know its own nature with perfect distinctness. Our mind is powerful. It can imagine and understand things. A thing which thinks. It is a thing which doubts, understands, affirms, denies, wills, refuses, which also imagines and feels. Descartes describes of persons with different modes of thoughts that a thing which can think, doubt, understand, affirm, deny, will, refuse, imagine, and feel. Descartes also realizes that his existence is quite certain at this point in terms of the way he is feeling the heat, seeing the light, and hearing noises which he doubted as just a mere bodily object before, and that feeling correlates to what he is thinking. Mind that loves to wander. Corporeal things whose images are framed by thought, which are tested by the senses, are much more distinctly known than that obscure part of me, which does not come under the imagination. Descartes wants to find a distinct reason or answer to his question. A piece of wax. What then did I know so distinctly in this piece of wax? We know the appearance, qualities of the wax, but when it is near the fire, Descartes questioned why we still perceive it as wax, even though its qualities have changed. Imagining and understanding. It is my mind alone which perceives it. Descartes explained that we perceive the wax as the same wax because we understand the concept behind it. We perceive that the wax will melt even before the wax has been put near to the fire. We can perceive the truth and real nature by imagining and understanding. Distinct and clear. For if I judge that the wax is or exists from the fact that I see it, it certainly follows much more clearly that I am, or that I exist myself from the fact that I see it. Distinct is a word to explain that you are not confused with something to other ideas, while clear as a word to provide general understanding. And of course, the famous line of René Descartes, Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. I see clearly that there is nothing which is easier for me to know than my mind. The body is not properly speaking by its senses or imagination, but by understanding it only because of our mind. and our mind can attain certainty. As we conclude our discussion on the first two meditations of René Descartes, Meditation on the First Philosophy, we have embarked on a profound journey of doubt and self-examination. These meditations challenge us to question the very foundations of our knowledge, inviting us to explore the depths of skepticism and certainty. We have witnessed Descartes' radical method of doubt, where he encouraged us to strip away our preconceived beliefs, casting aside everything that is not indubitable. In this process, he famously declared, Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am, offering us a beacon of certainty in the sea of doubt. We hope that this discussion has not only provided you with historic facts, but also ignited your curiosity and philosophical reflection. As we part ways today, remember that Descartes' meditations continue to inspire generations of thinkers and challenge us to explore the limits of human understanding. On behalf of Group 9, we wish you all a blessed and intellectually enriching week ahead. May you continue to seek knowledge and embrace the ever-evolving journey of self-discovery. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening exploration. Have a nice day.
René Descartes was a French 17th century philosopher, famous above all for saying, "I think, therefore I am," but worthy of our attention for many reasons beyond this. What makes him stand out is that he was a fierce rationalist. In an age when many philosophers still backed up their arguments with appeals to God, Descartes trusted in nothing more than the human power of logic. This is how he defiantly kicked off his book, Rules for the Direction of the Mind. I shall bring to light the true riches of our souls, opening up to each of us the means whereby we can find, within ourselves, without any help from anyone else, all the knowledge that we may need for the conduct of life. Descartes had immense faith in what introspection, guided by definition, sound argument, and clarity of thought, could achieve. He believed that much of what was wrong with the world was caused by misusing our minds, by confusion, bad definition, and unconscious illogicality. His life was an attempt to make our minds better equipped for the task of thinking. To solve key questions, Descartes proposed that one always had to divide large problems into small, understandable sections by way of incisive questions. This is what he called his method of doubts. We get muddled by certain questions like, what's the meaning of life or what is love? Because we're not careful enough about how we break these big inquiries down. He described the method of doubts as akin to having a large barrel of apples, where good ones are mixed with bad ones. To be a philosopher means a commitment to sorting out the entire barrel, to inspecting each apple individually and throwing away all the bad ones to ensure only those of the best quality are left. Another way to think about Descartes, and this explains why he would, among other things, turn out to be such a hero to the leaders of the French Revolution, is that he believed in grounding all of our ideas in individual experience and reason, rather than authority and tradition. In his greatest book, Discourse on the Method, published in 1637, he explained how he had come to write it. A long time ago, I entirely abandoned the study of letters, resolving to seek no knowledge other than that which could be found in myself, or else in the great book of the world. I spent my youth travelling, visiting courts and armies, mixing with people of diverse temperaments and ranks, gathering various experiences, testing myself in situations which fortune afforded me, and at all times reflecting personally upon whatever came my way so as to derive some profit from it. Descartes spent a large part of his adult life away from his native France in the Dutch Republic, since he held the belief, not entirely unwisely, that the mercantile Dutch would, as a people, be far too concerned with earning money to pester a free-thinking man like himself. However, it turned out that the Dutch were a little less materialistic than he'd hoped, and the philosopher ended up moving 24 times to keep ahead of spies and government agents. Descartes' subjective approach to philosophy reached its climax when he arrived at the famous phrase, Cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. The phrase first appeared in French, Je pense, donc je suis, in the Discourse on the Method, before then appearing in Latin in The Principles of Philosophy of 1644. It was intended to be Descartes' ultimate answer to a question that philosophers sometimes get perhaps unreasonably interested in, namely, how can one know that anything, including oneself, actually exists rather than being some sort of dream or phantasm? On his quest for certainty around this question of whether it might all be a dream, Descartes began by observing that our human senses are deeply unreliable. He couldn't, for example, he said, be trusted to know whether he was actually sitting in a room in his dressing gown next to a fire or merely dreaming of such a thing. But there was one thing he could know for sure. He could trust that he was actually thinking. His existence could be proved by a neat tautological trick. He could not be thinking and wondering if he existed if he did not exist. Therefore, his thinking was a very basic proof of his being. Or, to return to the maxim, I think, therefore I am. This might not sound like a huge insight, but Descartes used it as an Archimedean point in an epistemologically unsteady world. With this certainty safely banked, Descartes argued that his mind could go on to discover other similarly irrefutable truths. Some of the charm of Descartes' work comes from his entwining of personal details along with more arid philosophical passages. He tells us, for example, that his revolutionary idea came to him during the winter of 1619, when he'd escaped the fierce cold of the Low Countries by hopping into a stove and spending the whole day meditating inside. Descartes epitomizes the solitary end of philosophy. One can, in his eyes, solve the most profound problems by searching deep within oneself. Teams of individuals or ideas passed through the generations, as they are in universities, are deeply suspect for Descartes. Philosophers don't need gangs of scientists using expensive equipment, unheard-of terminology, and huge data sets. They just need a quiet room and a rational mind. At another point, Descartes recounts that he mocked friends of his who once showed up at his home at 11 in the morning and were surprised to find him still in bed. "What are you doing?" they inquired skeptically. "Thinking," Descartes replied. The group was stunned, but Descartes criticized them in turn for privileging often nonsensical practical tasks over the beauty of pure, quiet reflection in bed. In 1649, Descartes finished another great work, Passions of the Soul. It was the outcome of 6 years of correspondence with a royal acquaintance, the Princess Elizabeth of Bohemia, who was a keen amateur philosopher and a rather emotional and turbulent soul. She had written to Descartes begging him to write about passions, in order that she might get to know and control her own more clearly. Descartes obliged, thinking that the ancient philosophers had done a poor job of analysing the passions, and that ordinary and not so ordinary people would benefit immensely from another look at the topic. He therefore opened the Passions of the Soul with a characteristic claim: "I shall be obliged to write just as if I were considering a topic that no one had dealt with before me." The work provides a beautiful taxonomy of pretty much any passion one might feel, as well as descriptions of their causes, effects, and functions. This is followed by another section called The Discipline of Virtue, a manual of advice on how we can control our passions and enjoy a virtuous life. Descartes identified 6 fundamental passions: wonder, love, hatred, desire, joy, and sadness. From these, there followed in his eyes an unlimited number of specific passions, combinations of the original ones. Descartes didn't believe in vanquishing passions, as the ancient Stoic philosophers had proposed, merely in learning how to identify them in oneself and understand their impact on one's behavior. He would have been very sympathetic to psychotherapy. He believed that a key task of being a philosopher was to help people understand and therefore control their passions, that is, become a little less anxious, status-driven, scared, or inclined to fall head over heels in love with inappropriate people. He was optimistic about how much progress we could make psychologically. Even those who have the weakest souls can acquire absolute mastery over their passions if they work hard enough at training and guiding them. Descartes' psychological and philosophical work attracted ever more powerful admirers. In 1646, Queen Christina of Sweden got interested in sorting out issues in her mind and began a correspondence with Descartes. She even persuaded the philosopher to move to Sweden to tutor her in passion and philosophy in 1649. However, the early working hours required, the Queen could only make time for lessons at 5 a.m., and the harsh cold soon made Descartes ill. He died of pneumonia in 1650 at the age of 53. To remember Descartes by "I think therefore I am" is perhaps not as shallow as one might initially have presumed. The sentence does truly capture something important about him and the task of philosophy in general. It signals a commitment to working through emotional confusion, prejudice, and unhelpful tradition in order to arrive at an independent, rationally founded vision of existence.